Being a queer woman means everything to me. It means that I can live my truth, fully being able to embrace that I love myself and all of the women that I love is the way that I'm able to champion myself and really feel the best and most full version of myself.
It informs so much of how I navigate the world, but also how the world can perceive me.
Nodding at two other women holding hands, walking down the street, that sort of thing. Something quite intimate and maybe underground.
Being a non-binary human being, there's days I feel more feminine than others, there's days I feel more masculine. I guess it's just to be yourself and to embrace our differences and to be, I guess, a representation of so many younger people like myself, so when little black queers grow up, they see people like myself.
The idea of queerness actually allows me to, expand the pool of people that I'm attracted to, and I very much am attracted to, individuals rather than, body parts or whatever. But it also allows me to tie in my explorations around gender. Queerness is a way of pushing back against preconceived ideas and actually just claiming my own definitions for myself in ways where actually it can be quite fluid and flexible, and so I'm not tied to a specific label.
When we look at intersectionality, it's always too easy to think of circles, three circles that overlap, and we focus on the bit in the middle. And I think it's important to recognise that the bit in the middle isn't always equal, it's not always the same, and those circles can shift. And just like gender identity is very fluid, intersectionality can be as well. There are times when I feel like my gender identity takes a forefront, and a lot of the issues that I deal with, a lot of the things that I face are relating to my gender identity. But all of a sudden something else could happen in the press, for example, that brings up the issue of race, and at that point that will come to the forefront. But they're always there and they're always fluid and moving.
As a black woman, I feel like sometimes these multiple identities can be at odds with each other, especially the black community I felt have actually sort of pushed against and rejected my queerness. But at the same time, I find it really powerful that all of these identities can come together in me.
I've experienced more racism in the LGBT community than I have experienced homophobia in the South Asian community. What it's been more is challenging assumptions, so challenging the assumptions of, say, my grandparents that I was going to marry a man from my community.
Having cultural differences that sees mental health a certain way, sees being gay a certain way, instantly I wasn't confident to come out and say who I was. You need that support to feel at one with yourself. And until I had that, I never really felt, I didn't even know who I was. I was a shell of Coco, if you like.
Since coming out, I can't say that my mental health has suddenly been amazing, but the most important thing is I'm at peace. I had, when I was growing up, certain views and certain roles to adopt. And for me, it was a challenge to actually go against that because they're very rigid traditional views. The way I see it now, by me pushing against this, it's my chance to actually say, to the next generation, you can be who you want to be.
Being a woman of colour, being neurodivergent and being fluid in my gender expression impacts everything that I do, because it impacts the way that I see the world, it impacts the way I interact with others. I think the neurodiversity in me gives me the strength to focus on how I perceive others, and I find that having that perception really helps me to thrive in any sort of working environment, because it's not necessarily about what's happening outside, it's about what's happening internally with me.
I know this happens quite a lot with LGBT people of faith, that they often step away from their religion to fully explore their sexuality and then, are able to merge the two through their own exploration.
Exploring womanhood and actually reclaiming womanhood has been such an important and actually euphoric journey under my own terms.
Those rigid binary definitions and rules that we grow up learning, they don't have to be like that. And the way I always see it is like a map in a computer game where you only see certain parts you have explored, everything else is just dark. And as you find out what's beyond that darkness, you realise it's just more map and you can carry on. It's fine, it can be safe. And it's leading people to explore that map and allowing them to let other people do the same for themselves as well.
I'm personally redefining womanhood by allowing myself to be free of the rules, the constructs and the inhibitions. It's not about how I look, how I speak, how I dress or who or the way I interact. It's about me being the fullest version of myself. And there's no right or wrong way to be me.
Through time and space, we're all part of this concept of womanhood. Every individual person can take different facets of womanhood and what it means to them to be a part of that.
Really embracing my natural masculine energy, and I know I have it, and instead of trying to push away from it, to be like, embrace it and use it as part of my strength.
Liberation looks like people recognising that I'm compassionate and wise and kind rather than what I look like or what I am.
Safety to exist, and even if I do get something wrong, that I have the freedom to change my mind and I have the freedom to change my actions.
People liberation, the idea that people, whoever you are, whatever identity you have, you can walk this planet, this earth, and be 100% yourself, accepted in that, and seen and acknowledged as you are.
It's for when I can walk down the street with my missus and my 2 kids, when we have kids, I decide to no one look at us. So we've got a long way to go, however, we're on the way.
By and large, a society that just allows you to get from point A to point B without questioning you, without even caring, that is true acceptance, and that's the point where you are fully liberated because you can just step through and do whatever you want.
Without impinging on the freedoms of anyone else and without discriminating against anyone else whilst you're doing those things.
I'm sick of coming out as gay. People shouldn't have to do that. No one comes out as straight. So when these kinds of things just becomes a normal, because that's why I always say, let's create our normal, do you get me?
Liberation is people seeing past the fact that I'm neurodiverse, that I'm a lesbian, that I'm a woman, and seeing the essence of me.
I think for the first time in my life, I do feel liberated. I do feel free. People are constantly trying to divide us up. Whatever it is, there's constantly like trying to make these divisions amongst us. And actually, like, again, that's just a tool of the system, isn't it? Like, liberation to me is about all of us coming together and saying, actually, we reject that, and we're going to just create space for all of us to be truly ourselves, but where we are making those choices for ourselves as well.
Society and civilization has to operate within certain structures, and there will always be people who are more powerful than other people. So I don't know that we can ever fully achieve true liberation, but I hope at least we get to a point where we're not actively trying to stop the liberation of other people.